In this tutorial, we're going to focus on the lasso tool. We're going to learn the differences between the polygonal lasso tool and the magnetic lasso tool, as well as choose which one to use. We're also going to get an introduction into masks and how they can be combined with the selection tools to quickly and non-destructively combine images. One of the important things about learning Photoshop is to realize that just because you've seen it doesn't mean it's real. And today, I'm going to make an example of that by making Calvin rampage through Claremont. I've collected my images here, and they are each in their own document. If you want to do this in a different way, it's totally fine, but I thought it made for an interesting start. Now that I have Calvin on a Claremont background, looking over my layers, I can see I have Calvin on layer 2 and Claremont on layer 1. I'm going to name them real quick. I'm going to now start getting rid of the parts of the image that I don't need. To do that, I'm going to use the Polygonal lasso tool. That can be found up here. And if you hover over it, you'll see that it has a hotkey of L. Holding it down gives us the option of the lasso tool, the polygonal lasso tool, and the magnetic lasso tool. We're going to start with the magnetic lasso tool. I'm going to zoom in. I find that when I'm using any of the lasso tools, that being close makes it so much easier. And I need to pick a place to start. I'm going to start right here. When I click and start moving my mouse, you'll notice that the line that's drawn doesn't exactly match where my mouse is. In fact, if my mouse is a little jittery, it will try to stick to the line that was drawn rather than what my mouse is doing. Another thing you might notice is right here, my lasso tool is not sticking to where I think it should. If you ever have that problem, you can place an additional point with your left mouse button and then carry on. I'm going to trace around as much of Calvin as I can. When I run out of space, I'm going to hold the space bar, grab my drawing, release the space bar, and then continue moving my magnetic lasso tool. If it misses a section, you can go back a little bit and click to place a point there. Now that I'm almost done, it's time for me to end my selection. If I am nearly there and I want to just finish drawing the line for me, I can double click, or I can click my very first point. Okay, now I'm going to zoom back out. Now I'm feeling pretty good about the selection about Calvin, but I don't know if it's quite good enough that I want to delete the background, because maybe I might get rid of part of his hair, or maybe something else that I want. So instead of deleting anything, this time I'm going to use a layer mask to hide it. Down in the bottom right, near the Layers tab, we have this option for a mask. When you have a selection and you click Add Layer Mask, the behavior is that it assumes what you have selected is all you want to see. And you'll notice next to the layer of Calvin, there is now kind of a black and white image with a chain next to it saying that this is linked to my image of Calvin. I'm going to double click that. And this is going to bring up the layer mask option. And this allows us to see our layer mask in kind of a few different ways. Right now we're in onion skin mode, and I can adjust this transparency slider to see what it looks like when the layer mask is in full effect, what it looks like when it's totally off. I'm going to show you a different one. I'm going to go to the black and white one, because the black and white one makes it really easy to explain what's going on here. Imagine I took a piece of cardstock and cut out very carefully the shape of Calvin. If you were to hold that up to your eye, you'd be able to see through all the parts that are cut out. That is the white. All the parts that are not cut out, black, block the light so you can't see through it. That is exactly how a layer mask functions. So here we can see the white is all the Calvin, and the black is where is being hidden. We're not really going to do a lot with this right now. So we can just say, okay. And note that this layer down here next to Calvin is a mask, not something that we see directly. All right, let's move Calvin around a little bit, maybe resize him. Actually, I kind of like where he is. It's not too bad. Yeah, right there. That looks wonderful. The image of Calvin, we used the magnetic lasso tool, and that made a lot of sense because Calvin had a lot of curves and kind of weird shapes, but very well-defined edges. And if I zoom in, we can see where the edges were less well-defined, like the hair, it didn't do nearly as good of a job. But where the lines were very well-defined, like the edge of his face, it did an excellent job finding that edge. The next tool we're going to use is the Polygonal lasso tool. And this one only places points where you click. Next, we're going to use the Polygonal lasso tool, and I have an image ready to be pasted in. When using the Polygonal lasso tool, it makes sense to choose an image that has lots of straight edges. Otherwise, you're going to be clicking a ton. Let's select the Polygonal lasso tool by clicking and holding the magnetic lasso tool and then selecting the Polygonal lasso tool. The Polygonal lasso tool only places points where you click. So I'm going to click one corner. Because the edge of this creeper is a straight line, it's really easy for me to click at the next corner and be sure that I have done a good job in finding its edge. I'm going to repeat this, moving all the way around until I have fully outlined the creeper. When I'm done, I can either double click at the last corner or I can come over to my starting point and finish closing the shape. Just like before, I'm going to click the Add Layer Mask, and that will mask out everything that I don't have selected. I can use my Move and Transform tool. Remember, if you don't have the transform shape around it, you can click Show Transform Controls, and I'll shrink this creeper down. In this tutorial, we learned about the various lasso tools, as well as a little bit on how we can use layer masks to improve our editing workflow.